welcome to another edition of the Nightly Nudes. Ted, what a first 3 days of the week we've had with Kyle Rittenhouse. And Kyle, I have to tell you, I'm extremely impressed with how articulate you are, how thoughtful you are. And I think the rest of America, if they would take 10 seconds just to get to know Kyle Rittenhouse, I think they would cut through all the BS that the mainstream media tried to feed them on you, because obviously you're a good young man. I want to get into some other current events with you, but one of the things that somebody close to me asked to ask you tonight, tell me a little bit about you. Are you a faith-filled young man? How do you live your life in general?
Absolutely. I'm a faith-filled man. I believe God has helped me through this, and he stood by my side through this entire ordeal. And without him, I don't think I could have came out on top. And so what I do in my time, pretty much like how I am, I try to stay busy. I get bored very easily because I'm reading like these lawsuits. I'm going over this paperwork and talking to different people, and yeah.
You have a lot of support out there, don't you, Colin?
Yes.
You know that good Americans love you, that we pray for you. I first spoke to Kyle just here recently after he was on Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson has really been a friend to Kyle Rittenhouse, because Tucker Carlson is a friend to truth, logic, and common sense in Americans in the asset column. But I think Keith's inquiry is very important. At 17, you weren't a gun guy, so to speak. You didn't have a gun collection. You didn't shoot all the time because you said you only fired 150 rounds through the gun before this moment in Kenosha. How was your upbringing, and what do you attribute in your upbringing to your, and I use the word purity. Self-defense is pure. Being a hard worker in the asset column for God, family, country, the environment, the hunting lifestyle, environmental upgrade. What was your upbringing like that prepared you to make such critical and difficult decisions on that night in Kenosha, and now 3 years later, after going through hell, how did your upbringing fortify you and prepare you for these very difficult times in your life?
Well, I grew up in a single family household. There's no dad that lived with me. My mom worked like 80-hour weeks. I was working. I dropped out of high school freshman year. And I was working full time. I was working 3 jobs. I was a lifeguard and swim instructor. And I think that really helped me, being a lifeguard and swim instructor, knowing how to like control my emotions and adrenaline, because having to deal with emergencies that happened. I didn't have that many. I only had 2 like real emergencies at my jobs. But being a firefighter cadet and a firefighter EMT cadet and a police explorer, I think also really helped prepare me in a way to deal with it. I had like an urge to just help people. I just wanted to be supportive. I didn't want to see my city get burned down. So I just wanted to be there and help and put out fires and provide first aid to people, because that's what I enjoyed doing. That was just who I am. I don't enjoy seeing people suffer. I don't like seeing people in pain. And if I can help, I will.
That's powerful stuff. I think
it is.
What you represents the best of mankind. So we salute you for that. We salute your mom for being a good role model of work ethic. And you have articulated what the Nightly Nudes stands for and celebrates, and that's God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, work ethic, law and order. I think Kyle Rittenhouse, Keith, embodies what God intended Americans in the first experiment in self-government to aspire to. And at the age of 17, to perform like he did that night, I think Kyle's right. He was assisted by the hand of God.
I agree with you, Ted. And, you're such a thoughtful young man. I can tell that you're well read. You're up on current events, and I know you're up there in Wisconsin. What is your take?
So I actually got the hell out of Wisconsin.
Are you out of there now?
I'm in the great state of Texas now.
Oh, well, there you have it. Are you still following the Wisconsin Supreme Court election up there?
I would say no.
Well, you're about to get a crash course on it, because what Kyle did, Keith, and as I've mentioned before, was a manifestation of where our culture has decayed. That he would be tried for murder for defending his life. Well, up in Wisconsin, where Kyle Rittenhouse exercised the purity of the God-given right and duty of self-defense, they are now facing, my state of Michigan has basically gone berserk. It's controlled by communists. They're literally paying communist Chinese to come in and build battery factories in the state of Michigan, jeopardizing the greatest freshwater lakes in the world, and the freedom that I was raised in Michigan. And upward, Kyle Rittenhouse defended his life in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now they are looking at a supreme, as someone, I don't know what her qualifications are, because her resume is nothing but anti-justice and anti-freedom, anti-constitution, anti-life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Her name is Janet Prokosiewicz. And she is just a horrible, horrible anti-freedom woman. And some forces, the evil communist forces in Wisconsin, think that she should be on the Supreme Court, almost like somebody in Wisconsin thinking John Fetterman should be a congressman and Joe Biden might be president. So These evil forces are running amok. But Keith, we've been doing a lot of research, and here at the Nightly News, we love the Wisconsin citizens. I've been rocking and rolling and hunting in Wisconsin since 1967. The Fred Bear song has been the #1 song in Wisconsin for 33 years. There's a heart and soul up there, but they're being overrun by the leftist communist agenda. And Keith and I have done the research and explain, Keith, what the people of Wisconsin are facing right now. Remember, this isn't just a dog catcher or a school board member, even though those are critical. This is someone running for the Supreme Court that will determine law and order and quality of life in the Great Badger State.
You know, with 7 justices sitting on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, a conservative justice in a very close court is retiring. So the balance of power in that Supreme Court is up for grabs right now on April 4 in Wisconsin. And here's what's on the ballot. Janet Prokosiewicz, who is a extreme liberal, she hasn't seen a gun she doesn't want to take. She hasn't seen the Second Amendment written in any way that she doesn't want to destroy it. She wants to redraw the boundaries of who votes in what election in Wisconsin. If she wins, that's going to happen. And what will happen at that point is all good people in Wisconsin will never win another election. So in Wisconsin, your gun rights, they're on the ballot. Your hunting rights are on the ballot, because if Janet Soft on Crime Prokosiewicz wins, she'll never let you hunt wolves in Wisconsin again. You're already getting overrun with wolves in Wisconsin. The wolf population has gone up by 240% in the last 12 years, while the deer harvest has gone down by 40%. So at the end of the day, if there's any good people in Wisconsin, let alone any good hunters that set this election out, what's going to happen is the wolves are not only going to control the Wisconsin woods, the wolves will now control the Wisconsin courts. And Ted, I tell you, I'd like you just to kind of end tonight with a direct plea to our Wisconsin hunters, our Wisconsin gun owners, and really all the good folks that believe in the traditional values in Wisconsin. What's really at stake if they set this election out? Because on the other side, Ted, Dan Kelly, he's a true conservative. He will defend the Constitution. He's been a stalwart for the Second Amendment. He's pro-hunting, and he will not let that get redistricted to destroy conservatism in Wisconsin. Final take, Ted.
Well, it's really important that we have Kyle Rittenhouse on here, because we saw that a judge saw the footage of Kyle defending his life from an armed attacker and still let him be charged with murder. So, Kyle, this is really relative, and it's going on all across the country, but it's really quite interesting that what Kyle dealt with in Wisconsin is now coming to a full steam, ahead of full steam, in freedom, individual rights, constitutionality, conservative family values. So, Kyle, what we're facing in Wisconsin is that if the hunting population, it really does come down to the licensed hunters in Wisconsin. If you all vote your traditional family values, and we would recommend you join me at hunternation.org and at huntthevote.org. We're going to have a lot of lower screen stuff going on here because we're going to put up the Kyle Rittenhouse fundraising site because this man deserves our support. But Kyle, do you see the parallel that a judge in a black robe thought he could charge you could be charged with murder when it was clearly self-defense? This Janet Prokosewicz's, she literally would end hunting. Her policy is anti-hunting, wants wildlife in the liability column instead of the asset column.
Right.
She has been viciously anti-Second Amendment. She considers a revolver an assault weapon if it holds more than 4 rounds or whatever the number is. And Dan Kelly stands up for God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, the 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, work ethic, real conservation, keeping wildlife in the asset column. So my friends in Wisconsin, we can continue the message that finally the jury of Wisconsin, not the court systems, the jury in Wisconsin knew perfectly well, unambiguously, that Kyle Rittenhouse defended his life against a life threat. In defiance of the court system that allowed him to be charged with murder, we the people, like it says on Kyle's shirt, we the people of Wisconsin stood up and went, nope, Kyle Rittenhouse is alive today because he exercised his God-given right, his Second Amendment guaranteed God-given right of self-defense. Wisconsin, we need to make sure that the Supreme Court of Wisconsin is constitutional. And Dan Kelly is the guy. If you let this Janet soft on crime, anti-hunting, anti-gun, anti-freedom of speech gal in there, Wisconsin will be a suburb of San Francisco. So Kyle Rittenhouse, we thank you. I look forward to having you here at Spirit Wild Ranch come this Friday. I'm going to give you the last word, but believe me, once again, I'm going to keep reiterating because I know this has been painful. You probably have bad dreams and going, why would I be persecuted for defending my life? There is no answer to that why. The reason you had to defend yourself against a murder charge is because Joe Biden is president, Hillary Clinton is not in jail, Adam Schiff perjured himself and he's not arrested. Hunter Biden committed a felony. He's not arrested, but Kyle Rittenhouse was. So Kyle, give the last word. You're just a brilliant, focused, down-to-earth, grounded young man. Thank you for sharing your story. It should be an enlightening education for the Nightly Nuge listeners. And I'm rattling on here because I'm really good at it. Nightly Nuge listeners, tell everybody you know to tune into the Nightly Nuge because Kyle is the manifestation of good over evil. And we are with you, and you should never feel guilty, Kyle, and we're going to help you in any way we can. And I'll give you the last word here on the Nightly Nuge.
Thank you, Ted and Keith, for having me. And that Wisconsin stuff is ridiculous. Wow. They're trying to ban hunting. That is how thousands, if not millions, of families provide meals for their family. Like, they go out, they get a deer for the year, and that's how they eat. So that needs to stop. She does not need to be elected.
Well, Keith, we had a lot of guests on the Nightly Nuge, but I think Kyle's number one. What do you think?
Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive, Kyle. Thank you so very much for joining us here on the Nightly Nuge. And with what's going on in your life, will you come back and join us and keep us updated on what's going on with your lawsuit and other things that you've got going? Our listeners really would love to have you back.
Absolutely.
All right, Keith and Kyle, God bless you, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.